Hey Wellness Warrior, it's Dr. Zyrowski, and we're going to discuss the carnivore diet. I want to break this down and really help you understand what it is all about. We're going to look at why you'd follow it, what foods you'd eat, and the potential long-term negative effects that this will have on your body. So let's go ahead and dive in and discuss all these things. Now, the first thing I want to address is that a lot of people look at this diet and they say, well, nobody should be following a diet like this because it's reckless, it's all meat, it's dangerous. But the reality is that there are tribes around the world, like the Inuit tribe, that have followed this for decades and they are thriving. When you look at modern society and our modern medicine, unfortunately, many people are suffering with so many chronic health problems and they're not being solved. Whereas you take a tribe in a place without any medicine for the most part, and they're thriving and they're eating an all meat diet, right? So we know that this diet actually has good potential behind it right off the bat. Now, there's a lot of people who are going towards the vegetarian diet, right? There's a lot of extremes out there right now. I see so many people going all vegan, all vegetarian way on this side. And then of course we have the all meat eaters way on this side. Now, the reality is I don't think you should ever be extreme with your diet, and whatever diet that you're following, you should have a good purpose behind it, okay? And I'm gonna show you purpose as to why you would follow this diet versus any other diet out there. So let's dive into that. Now, the thing is here is when we look at the carnivore diet, when we look at what it is all the way down to its core, it is a really, really strict elimination diet. You're eliminating all the processed foods, all the vegetables. You're eliminating so many things that your body could react to negatively. And yes, believe it or not, even fruits and vegetables will cause your body to have negative reactions, especially if you're somebody who is sick. So a lot of people, as I mentioned, we have this chronic disease pandemic going on here in the United States especially, and we have people walking around with heart disease and high cholesterol and having heart attacks and cancer and diabetes and thyroid issues and autoimmune issues, you name it, the list goes on and on. So as we look at this very sick and unhealthy population, could people in general benefit from a carnivore diet? Well, first of all, we have the issue of obesity. Now, if you're following a carnivore diet, you are going to lose a lot of weight because the reality is that people tend to eat less often on the carnivore diet, and also it is going to put your body into a state of ketosis, which is a state of fat burning. Okay, if you're following the carnivore diet, you will 100% go into ketosis. And so it's going to really help with obesity. If you can just bring obesity levels down, let me tell you, you will change the health of the population. So obesity is a big thing that you could follow this for. If you're saying, hey, should I do the carnivore diet or not? If you're obese, yeah, absolutely, you could get some benefit from it. Okay, autoimmune, okay? This is when your immune system, which is designed to keep you healthy and safe and protect you, your immune system starts attacking your body. It's a very bad situation. It can go really wrong to the point where it even attacks your organ system to the point where it shuts them down and it kills them. You know, I've had people I've worked with where their kidneys were attacked or very important organs were attacked, and therefore those organs had to have they had to be taken out. They had to have an organ transplant. And so it's very dangerous if an autoimmune condition does not get under control. Well, if you're following a carnivore diet, you pull so many different reactant foods out of your diet, and therefore it works phenomenal for an autoimmune condition. I will tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, if I was suffering from a very, very harsh autoimmune condition, I would be on the carnivore diet. No questions asked. I see people every day that I recommend the carnivore diet to, and they have, you know, they go from having rashes and all kinds of symptoms and aches and pains, and they start following the carnivore diet, and it works out phenomenal. Now, another way you could do this, if you're saying, hey, I absolutely can't do that carnivore diet thing, is you could actually do an elimination diet where you basically strip all the foods out of your diet and you put one thing at a time and you try to make sure you avoid those foods that you react to. It's very difficult though. It's a big process. It's a lot to actually think about. Whereas if you just follow a carnivore diet, you just go to meat and you're in a position where you're going to find that these autoimmune conditions start to go away, right? Rheumatoid arthritis, automatically gone. Inflammatory issues where you're just aching and full of pain all the time, gone. So autoimmune conditions, a huge one in which I would follow the carnivore diet for personally. Now, I was talking about inflammation when I was talking about the autoimmune issue, and the reason for this is because most autoimmune issues have a nasty inflammatory component to it, but not necessarily all of them. You can also just have an inflammatory issue in your body where you're, aching and you're in pain all the time, and the carnivore diet is going to really help shut down that inflammatory issue. And this is really beneficial because if you're somebody who has an inflammatory issue, we know that this can lead to heart disease, it can lead to cancer, it can lead to all types of metabolic disorders, it can lead to thyroid conditions and brain conditions and gut conditions. So inflammation is not something that you should basically, not take seriously. It's very important. And then next is neurological, where there's these neurological conditions where people who are following the carnivore diet are seeing some really good results with it. So think Parkinson's and MS and some of these really severe neurological conditions that are life-changing. People are getting great results here. Okay, so let's talk about now the different foods that we can consume now that we talked about why you would do this. Okay, once again, I am a big fan of having a reason as to why you would follow this diet. I do not follow this diet because I don't have a reason to follow this diet. I have just to experience it and check it out because I recommend it to people sometimes. But it's very often that we will see people on the internet that are following diets like this and they just become bandwagon fans. They don't even know why they're doing it, but yet they jump on board. Have a reason as to why you would follow this diet. I also wouldn't follow a vegetarian diet. I wouldn't follow a vegan diet. I have no reason for doing so. Now let's go ahead and talk about the foods here. Now, when you're following the carnivore diet, it's a meat diet, right? So let's think meat first of all. So let's dive into smash fish. Okay, we specifically like to eat these types of fish because they're very fatty, because we want to consume fatty meats, because as much as this is a all meat diet, it also has kind of a ketogenic component to it. So we want to make sure we're getting those fatty meats. So when we say smash fish, we're talking about salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. Those are the types of fish that we want to consume while in the carnivore diet. Now we also want to consume grass-fed beef. Okay, we want grass-fed because it has the proper fat ratios. It's going to be better quality. So we want to make sure that we're consuming the grass-fed, and we could have burger or steak in the way of beef. Now also eggs are appropriate on the carnivore diet. Some people will have them, some people won't. It all kind of depends, right? Now eggs and also dairy are some of the foods that I find to be kind of negotiable on the carnivore diet, where you're going to get some people who are going to eat them and other people who won't. So eggs are something that you can have. Dairy, milk, cheese, yogurt, okay? And I'd say probably out of all the foods that I see people shy away from, if they're shying away from a particular food on the carnivore diet, is going to be the dairy. And dairy is something that's highly reactive. So if you're somebody who has an inflammatory issue and you're somebody who has an autoimmune issue or any of these different problems, you very well may want to be staying away from dairy because the human body tends to react poorly in a lot of cases. But if you are going to do dairy, make sure you're doing grass-fed, you're getting good quality products here, okay? Now let's go ahead and look at organ meats, okay? Very, very common that you are going to be eating organ meats like liver while on the carnivore diet. I've seen pretty much any type of strange meats eaten. I've seen head cheese, I've seen a lot of testicles. I mean, you name it, people are pretty much eating every meat, and along with the organ meats, the kidneys, the heart, the liver. And the reason that you really go towards these organ meats is because they are very, very nutrient dense, okay, which we're going to talk about nutrient deficiencies in just a second. But they're very nutrient dense, and many would argue that you shouldn't even follow the carnivore diet if you are not eating the organ meats. Now this sometimes is a little bit of a deal breaker for some people because the organ meats tend to be very strong in their flavor and not too many people like them. But you definitely want to be consuming some organ meats if you're following the carnivore diet because of the nutrient density. Now let's look at bone marrow. This is also something that's really good to consume well in the carnivore diet. Not a whole lot to say about it. You know, you just always want to make sure that when you're getting the organ meats and the bone marrow, you're getting it from good quality, healthy cows that are pasture raised, and you know that you can trust the farm that you're getting it from, because you don't want organ meats from a cow that was shot up with antibiotics and all kinds of different, anti-parasitics and stuff like that as the animal was alive, because inevitably you could be getting all of those things in the organ meats if you are consuming them. So make sure you're getting good quality organ meats. Now, what about a vitamin deficiency, okay? Because this is a big topic while following the carnivore diet. Many people are concerned about the fact that you could follow this and fall into this vitamin deficient state and then eventually have really poor health because of it. Well, The reality is because these organ meats have so many different nutrients within them, it's very rare that it happens, okay? In fact, I don't know of any different or any study or anything where people are falling into nutrient deficiencies as a result of this diet. It really doesn't exist. Whereas if you're following like the vegetarian diet, that's a big problem. I see people who are following these diets all the time. And unfortunately, by the time they come to me and they're fatigued and they don't feel well, and we go and we look at their blood cell panel, their blood cells are all messed up because they're not getting the iron, they're not getting the B12. And so I would say that this is a more natural diet than following something like a vegetarian diet, because you could actually live and thrive on this diet, where it's more difficult to live and thrive on a vegetarian diet without putting in a whole bunch of additive vitamins and nutrients, okay? So the next question is, are you going to fall into a vitamin C deficiency because the carnivore diet lacks vitamin C? That's a big question. And the reality of that is that the reason that most people fall into a vitamin deficient state with vitamin C is simply because of all the excess sugar intake and carbohydrate intake and eating a very low quality diet. Whereas when you're on the carnivore diet, that is not the case. So the reality is too, is that even when people follow the carnivore diet for a long period of time, they're not finding that they're falling into a vitamin C deficient state. So this is what you should eat, why you would follow this diet. And I do think that this is a good diet to follow when appropriate. If you enjoyed this video, I think you'll really like this one over here next.